David Malekar here with the Liberty Chronicle Independent. I have with me today the representative from is it the 1st District?
1st Congressional District.
1st Congressional District, Robert Sutherland. He is running this year in the 2006 campaign. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you're very active with your campaign, your neat approach that you do everything.
Right.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and give you a chance to introduce yourself to everybody and let them know your platform and what you plan on doing in your position.
Robert J. Sutherland, running for Congress against Susan Delbenny in the 1st Congressional District. Just so people know who I am, I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I went to Gonzaga University. I earned my degree in biochemistry. I came out here with the Puget Sound area and I researched DNA and developed cancer therapies throughout my career. Retired in 2009, got involved in politics to the dismay of many of my friends. Being a scientist and getting into politics, that's not a typical course career choice. But at the time when the economy was doing so poorly, I think it became important to everyone that we're in trouble economically in this country. We're being divided socially and so on and so forth. And that got me into politics, if you will. I started going to some Republican meetings just to see why are we losing so many elections? Why are things going so poorly? And long story short, from that time in 2009 till 2 years ago when I ran my first congressional race, in this race 2 years ago, that was my first taste at running for political office in my life. So that's who I am and kind of what I did, and got you up to date in about, 60 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the position that you're running for, what is the duties, like the regular duties of the position, and how you plan on enacting in the role that you will be?
Yeah, for a congressional race like this, you become the representative of a population, and in this case, the people of the 1st Congressional District, which not many people know the district boundaries. So roughly speaking, from the I-90 freeway down in Issaquah, North Bend, follows 202 up to the 405 freeway, all the way up to the Canadian border. That's 4 counties: the Northern King County, Snohomish, Skagit, and Whatcom counties. There's approximately 500,000 registered voters in that district, and because it is so diverse, from Redmond, Microsoft, tech people to the farmers, in the rural communities, it's a very diverse district, and it's not easy. You can't be one type of a person or another. You have to cross the lines and have them all. You need to represent them all. So it's not easy, actually. I'm a scientist. I'm a tech person in that respect. But we moved out. My 4 kids are up and out. 3 of them are up and out. We've downsized our home. We're out in the base of Mount Pilchuck, out in the middle. We're next to the farmers. But it's a diverse community. And so what the position I do in representing that diverse population is there's a multitude of legislation that comes across each congressperson, the representative's desk. And I, as a representative, I would need to make sure that whatever it is I'm going to vote for or against represents that population in my 1st Congressional District. I certainly don't want to run on these issues and then vote another way, like we see so many of our politicians doing. They come home, they have their town halls, they say what the people want to hear, they go back and they vote the other way. That's what's wrong with the system.
So in your opinion, for the congressional position that you'll be taking, what issue is needing to be addressed right now that is being ignored by the current person?
There's a multitude of issues that we could go on about. Let me give you one or two or a couple of them. The national debt is out of control, and that is not being addressed by anybody that I'm aware of, both sides of the aisle. It's just not being addressed. I don't care if it's the Republicans in charge or the Democrats. If the Libertarians really get in charge, we would see what they could do, I guess. But no one seems to be paying much attention to that. We've gone from $5 trillion to $20 trillion in debt in the last 10 years. It took us 225 years to get to $1 trillion. And then in the last few years, the last few presidencies, we've gone from the 1 to 5 to 5 to 10 to 20. And it's going nowhere but up. That is going to destroy this country. You're younger than I am. You're going to have to pay this back with interest. You're probably not far away from the age of my children. Some of my children, I got 4. We're going to hand them a country that is so far in debt, and they're going to have to pay interest on that debt. So they're going to go to work, they're going to earn a paycheck, look at it and say, my God, why are they taking so much money out of my paycheck? Well, that's in taxes. The taxes will go up, and those taxes will be used to pay off the debt. So your kids, you and my kids and your kids, they're going to go to work. When it's going to be taken, it's going to be shipped over to Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, all these people that the generation now and before borrowed the money from. And they're going to pay it back with interest. And so 20 trillion with interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big problems that's not being addressed right now. I'm on the campaign trail saying I will fight for a balanced budget. And so if a budget comes on my desk, comes across my desk, and it's not balancing, it's not projected, or if the trajectory is not towards a balanced budget, it's going to be a no. Until they at least get on a trajectory of shrinking the deficit down to a zero, and hopefully to a negative, to where we could actually start paying back some of this money that we owe and hand our kids a country that's not quite so far in debt as it is right now. Immigration is a big concern. We're a country of immigrants, don't get me wrong. Historically, we've let in about 250,000 people a year from around the world, different areas that they pick, and they say, well, we need some of these types of people, tech people, we need some of these other agricultural people, and they'll bring in about 250,000 people a year. That helps the economy. It helps us all. Recently, that has gone from 250,000 to about 1.2 million people a year. And those are the legal immigrants. The borders are wide open. The federal government is not doing its job. It hasn't secured the borders. So now we have not only the 1 million, 1.2 million illegal immigrants, we have a host of illegal immigrants coming across, not just from Mexico. I mean, those are great people. Central America, they're coming from the Middle East over to South America, down into Mexico, Guatemala. They're coming in there, and then they're coming across as if they're of Mexican descent. And so we have terrorists, we have drug cartels, criminals of all sorts coming across, along with those few people that are coming here for a better life. That as they say, they'll take the jobs that Americans don't want to take. So it's not those that come across that are good, decent people with families and they want a better life. That's not the issue. I guess it is an issue. Don't get me wrong. They need to come across legally. But it's those other ones that are coming here to harm us. They're going to harm everyone, not just me, not just you. They're going to harm everyone that's here in the form of terrorism, drugs, and crime, and rape, and murder, and all that. So immigration, the deficit, and we could just go on and on, I guess.
Oh, of course.
Those are two big ones.
And to clarify a little bit further, you were not opposed to the legal immigration and to help those that want to seek legal immigration and will be effective working people within the community, of
No,
course.
not at all.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, if we didn't have immigration, we would collapse as a country. The birth rate in this country is, don't quote me on the exact number, I think it's 1.2, 1.5 births per. And that is not enough to sustain the population. We need immigration just to sustain ourselves. And so it's all about the numbers and the types of people bringing in. When I say types, the qualifications, the skill level, you need a mix of things. You can't bring in 1.2 million attorneys every year after year after year, because then the market for attorneys would collapse, the wages would go down, and we would be short doctors, we would be short farmers, right? So you need to bring in certain types or classes or groups of people with a certain skill set in order to help our society. But you bring in too many, wages go down, classrooms fill up, college tuition rates go up, crime goes up. So there's a balancing act there that we need to keep in mind when we're creating our immigration policy. As a representative, I will be part of the immigration debate, and so we need immigration, absolutely. It needs to be done smartly and efficiently, and with the American family in mind. You bring in too many, it hurts them. You bring in too few, it hurts them. There has to be a balancing act.
And that's a fair answer. So on a more local level as well, like what else do you want to see done? Like let's say first month in office, what do you plan on doing locally to help in your community and in your district and in the state in general? How do you plan on affecting that within your first month?
Yeah, that's a more complicated question than you would think, because we're dealing with, I'm running for a federal office, and so I would have federal responsibilities. We have a state government, we have county governments, they take care of the state issues. The federal government, if done properly, would have very little effect on the people living in a state. Now, that's not the case. Right now, we have the federal government telling us what doctors we can and cannot see. They've taken over the health care. They've taken over our land management, especially in the West. So the federal government has outgrown its bounds. The restriction of the Constitution on the federal government, they've ignored it. They've grown themselves to a super government now, if you will, and they do affect almost everything we do in our lives in the state. I would be a part of the federal government where they didn't hear much about, that those people there could run their own lives through their state government, through the county governments. They could choose their own types of education for their children, not from some federal bureaucracy and Common Core shoving it down their throats. They would be able to choose their own health care insurance across state across state lines, choose their own doctors, the level of care they want, things like that. They would, if I had my way, you'd have less federal government intrusion into the people's lives and more of them being able to pick and choose what they want in their lives and how they live.
So, to give you a little bit more of an open floor, what else would you like to clarify on that needs to be addressed that hasn't been addressed yet? Like anything that you can think of that you may not have a chance to speak on yet, that you think that definitely has some importance and needs to be brought light to the attention of the viewers and readers?
Yeah, it's not a sexy topic at all. The U.S. Constitution. I've read it. I've been doing online courses. I read books. It is the one law, if you will, that the one and only law ever passed by the people of this country. I call it the people's law. It's the law that we created and we passed and we said, okay, this is the law, and it's the law that created the federal government. And it put many restrictions on that federal government. It says, we're going to create you, we're going to give you many powers and responsibilities. Not many responsibilities, it's actually, I think there's 17 clauses in there of what the Congress can do, for instance. So we're going to create you, allow that to happen, we're going to give you these responsibilities, and that's it. If it's not written in here, you can't do it. That's going to be left up to the states or to the people themselves. We're not giving up our power to a king or to a federal government that can just grow to whatever size. So the Constitution is one of those big issues that I don't go out onto the campaign trail and talk a lot about, because most people, it's not very interesting, it's not very sexy. Our school education system hasn't really taught it well enough for people to understand and appreciate that that is the one law that we have passed that safeguards our God-given rights against the federal government coming in and doing what it's doing to us. We don't, myself included, just a few years ago, we don't fully appreciate and understand what freedoms and rights that it articulates in there, and every government official, myself included, as a candidate, had to swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution and Constitution of Washington State. You swear an oath to that document. That's how important it is. Our founding fathers and the framers of this country put that in there. It's law. You want to become a federal, you have to swear an oath to the Constitution. The federal government and the people in D.C., the politicians in D.C., they've sworn the oath and they are not abiding by it. And that is causing the problems we see today, a whole host of problems. But that's a very important issue in the back of my mind. Again, I don't campaign on it, but as a congressman, I want the people to know that I would have their rights in mind in any piece of legislation that comes across my desk. Is it constitutional? Is this going to help freedom and liberty, or is it going to expand the federal government to tell them what to do and how to live their lives? So that's kind of how I will weigh legislation coming across my desk.
And that's a very important and great point that you're making. I was actually going to ask you about your opinion on the Constitution, and that sums it up right there. Well, I'm going to give you one more question, and that is in regards to with your opponent. How do you plan on making that impact to set yourself apart? And you're doing a fantastic job on your campaign trail thus far, as we had spoken a little bit previously the other day on. And I just want to let the people know, like, how you, from a personal perspective, how you were able to change the way things are looked upon in politics, and the amount of effort that you're putting into it, because I think that people should know the amount of time and effort and energy, the 18-hour days, reaching out to people on a single basis, hand-to-hand, handshake type approach. Go ahead and let the people know what's going to set you apart and what is setting you apart, so that way they know that when they see your name come November, they're going to consider it for your vote.
Yeah, well, I'll touch on, this is the second time I'm running in this particular race. The House representatives run every 2 years, as opposed to the Senate, they run every 6 years. And it's designed that way so that there's a big turnover in the House. If we look back or look over to Britain, they have a House of Commons. That's kind of where we have our House of Representatives. And that's the down and dirty, big turnover. It's the common person, if you will. The farmers, the police, the firefighters, the average blue collar, middle class worker can get in the House. And it's from the House that produces certain bills. If you want to raise taxes, the bill has to originate from the House, not the Senate. We don't need those rich people raising our taxes. Let's let the commoners, if you will, raise the taxes. If they think it's necessary, then they'll put it forward. I'm getting off topic. But so 2 years ago, I ran for this race as an average person. I've never been elected before. I'm a scientist, again, from Gonzaga, biochemist. Never been elected official before, so I'm a commoner, if you will. I'm not a political elite. I haven't been in public office before. So I ran for the House of Representatives 2 years ago. My millionaire opponents, two of them. My closest one raised $425,000. I raised $4,600. It's 100-1, roughly. He had his professional staff, manager, treasurer, campaign coordinator, all that. I had me as a candidate. My wife was my treasurer, and we had to learn how to do that, jump the hurdles of the FEC and the PDC. My daughter was the one that went out on corners with me waving signs, my 14-year-old daughter. That was my crew. We went out, and when that election ended, by the way, so my opponent was in there for about a year, and I got in late with about 4 months to go. When that election ended, I was ahead. I won that election. It was the primary. For the next 3 days, I should say I won it for 3 days, because 3 days later, as the mail-ins came in, I trickled behind and barely lost that race. I'm back. Same race, different people. Delbany is still in there. We just went through the primary, and I crushed my 4 other opponents that were in that race. So now it's Delbany and I, top 2 in Washington State. We're going on into the general. When I won that race for 3 days 2 years ago, and when I just won my primary, I have people asking all the time, Robert, you're not raising a lot of money. You don't have a huge staff. You're certainly not paying for your staff, being able to go across the country and hire the best of the best. It's volunteers. They don't get paid. Right? There are people that want to help, just like you and I, who want to do the right thing for the country. So, like, how are you doing? How are you getting these votes? How are you? If you're not on TV, and you're not on radio, and you don't have a big staff, how are you doing it? And this is where a lot of candidates, a lot of political parties, the people, the career politicians, and the professionals in politics and campaigns, they've lost touch, I think, with what really is the key to going out and being effective. So what little money I have, I bought literature with, and then I go out and I take it and I talk to voters one-on-one. And people ask, well, how do you talk to enough voters? I mean, yeah, we knock on doors too, Robert. I go, well, I don't knock on doors. That's not efficient enough. You might reach 10, 12, 14 people an hour knocking on doors. And then you're going to interrupt their dinner, they're changing diapers of the babies, or they're busy at their home. Now, I don't like having people, strangers, knock on my door. So one day I was out and I was putting gas in my car. This is a true story. I'm stressed because I need to reach more people. I'm putting gas in my car. I'm sitting there. I'm watching the little, dollar signs go by, and I'm just like, come on. I look around and there's people over there doing the same thing I am. They're putting gas in the car and they're checking their phones and they're killing time. I grabbed a stack of my literature while I was putting gas in my car. I went around and I gave 20 pieces of literature out while my gas tank was filling up. And I had a very good response from them. They're sitting around bored too. They're not at home doing things at home. So I had a very good response, and I put the nozzle back up and I stopped, and by the time I did that, there was another change of cars getting gas. I went, you know what, I grabbed some more, and I did it again, another 10, 20, 30 pieces of literature before I got out of my car and I drove off. And I'm like, that was amazing. I just did 50 pieces of literature in a few minutes, right? And so I went to another gas station, I pulled up to the pump, and I acted like I was getting gas. And I grabbed my literature, and I did the same thing. And then I went back to that original gas station, because now we have new people again. And I just went back and forth to various gas stations and went, I'm going through hundreds an hour, 60 to 100, I estimate, people an hour versus 10 or 12 knocking on doors. And after you get sick of the fumes of gas stations, well, then I went to strip malls, chiropractor offices, dentist offices and insurance. I'd walk in, and if they weren't busy with customers, and I'd talk to the receptionist or the owner, whoever it was, and I would give them a piece of my literature, and they were thrilled to death to meet the candidate. No one ever does this. And if I wasn't at a gas station or in a strip mall at businesses, I'd go in a grocery store. If I need to buy some milk on the way home, get some bread and some milk and whatnot, I go in the grocery store. I go down every aisle and I pass out my literature to the shoppers in the store. And very brief, 8 seconds. I'm a veteran, I'm a scientist, I'm running for office. Can I just leave that with you? And I pass out hundreds of those doing that. So those 3, along with just your normal knock. I did knock on doors. I did make a few phone calls. But you add that all up, I reached by far more candidates more constituents, eyeball to eyeball, than my opponents. And it resonates with people when they meet the candidate themselves. They can hear me talk. They have to like you. They have to like what you say. And then you give them a piece of literature so they can remember you. That works. And that's what I do to be able to get out the vote for not just me, but for Republicans. I'm running as a Republican. And so when they open that ballot and they see my name, they recognize it. They can put a face to it. I met that guy. And so they vote for you. And hopefully they'll vote for other Republicans because they like me. I'm a good representation of the party. So that's what I do. Besides that, I built my own website. I do a lot of the nut and bolts of the Treasury part of it, and I have a Treasury guy that files for me. I do a lot of the Facebook, the email, all of that. I go till 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning every day. My alarm goes off 6:30 in the morning, and then it's just whatever time I get done with that day's worth of work, that's when I get to bed. So it's grueling. It can wear you out, and you can get yourself sick. You have to be careful. I haven't eaten. It's 3 o'clock. I haven't eaten today yet. I'm going to leave this interview. I'm going to go grab a bite to eat. Then I'm going to head to Bellingham to drop off some signs and literature because my crew, my staff isn't big enough to where I can just have that done. So I'll do it. And driving time will be downtime for me. That's my rest. Then I'll hand off some literature. They're working for me up in Whatcom County, very hard for me. So I'm privileged to drive up there and hand them more of my yard signs and campaign literature because they're knocking on doors and they're putting my signs up for me. They're volunteering. So that's the nuts and bolts of my campaign. That's what I do. I like to meet people, the voters. They apparently like what I have to say. And we need to take care of our veterans, secure our borders, get a balanced budget, and you go on and on. And this nonsense about men in the women's bathroom. I have a 17-year-old daughter that doesn't sit very well with me. So that's a piece on my literature that resonates with a lot of people, especially parents that have children. They want to protect their children. So it's an issue we need to solve as a society. It's very solvable, but just having perverts, if you will, easily access the women's bathroom is not something that sits well with me.
Yeah, there needs to be a discussion, an open discussion about that, one that doesn't have a bias towards it as well. So I completely agree with that.
We want everyone. The Constitution covers everyone.
Yeah.
Their pursuit of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So we're not here to hurt or to silence anyone in our society. But we don't want one group of people. I don't care who it is. We don't want one group of people hurting another group.
Right.
That's the thing. We want to all live in a society, have our rights protected, and not step on one another. And that's the key to having a decent, civilized society where we can all pursue our happiness. And the government's not telling us how to pursue that happiness.
Well, Robert, it's been fantastic being able to talk with you today. I'm sure that the viewers have been able to see your person-to-person approach and your honest campaign that you're running. Any final words you would like to leave with the viewers that are watching?
One of those loaded questions. I hopefully I've been able to let your viewers get to see a little bit about who I am, how I run a campaign, how I'm different. I've never been elected before. I go out and I talk to voters a lot. That's how I'm successful at getting the votes I do. What I would really like, I'd like to maybe have a request for your listeners. If they can share this video with as many friends as they have, whether it's on Facebook or links or however they do that, that would help me get the word out. If your viewers like me, versus say Susan Del Bene, the Democrat who's the big government spend and tax and spend, if they like me, then help me. Because that's another way I reach so many voters. Everyone I talk to where I have a minute to talk to them, I ask them, please get me another vote or two. Get me 5 more votes. Facebook me. Do whatever you can do to help me get some more votes. So I'm going to ask your listeners the same thing. If you like me, spread this message. If you have a few dollars, Right now, we're trying to get on radio. We're getting ready to go to radio ads, and I have a little bit of money to do a little bit of ads and get on radio. I need a lot more. I need $5,000 or $10,000. Now, when I say a lot, I'm talking about a few $1,000s, not $1 million like Dale Bain's going to spend
Right.
for advertising. I need a few $1,000s. To me, that's a lot of money. And when I ask people for money, I know that we're hurting. Well, when you come down, when you're of our class, but some of your listeners are going to have some money. I would like to ask every single listener that's watching this video, if you've lost your job, you're losing your house, the sheriff's dragging you out of your house right now. Ask that sheriff to hold on for a second so you can make $1 donation to my campaign, $1. Because I know you're hurting, but $1. I want every listener that sees this to donate $1. If you've got a job and you're not being thrown out of your house, but you're up to your eyeballs in debt, cut back this week on going out to eat and the extras and send maybe $100 if you can. And if you're one of the 1%ers where you've got your 401k, you go on vacations every year, you and your wife, you're working, you got no kids, and you're doing all right, please, you're the ones that really need to step up. You can max out your donation at $2,700, a married couple, $5,400. Go to my website, donate online, it takes about a minute. If you guys will do that, if every single person watching this video that likes me will do that, I will have enough money to get on radio and to blast this message out to enough people to where me as a candidate that has very little money, you and I, your audience and I working together can unseat the millionaire elitists that are in there right now that do not represent us. They come here, town halls, they say what we want to hear, they go back and they vote the opposite of what we want them to do. If you guys, if your audience, if you want to help me, help yourself and your kids and your future, you got to make a donation. Doing that will get me on radio to spread this message. So that's what I want to ask your audience.
And what's the website address again?
SutherlandUSA.com.
And we'll put a link to that in the description of the video as well.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck to you on your campaign trail for the rest of the way.
All right, appreciate it.